How do you do? Mr. Carl Lemley feels it would be a little unkind to present this picture without just a word of friendly warning. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to have Halloween several months early, because we're here to analyze the 16th episode of The Simpsons, which was obviously called Treehouse of Horror. It was episode number 7F04. It originally aired on October 24th of 1990, and the first act, which is called Bad Dream House, was written by John Swartzwelder and directed by Wes Archer. The second act, which is called Hungry Are the Damned, was written by Jake Hogan and Wally Wolodarski, and it was directed by Rich Moore. And the third act, which is called The Raven, was written by Edgar Allan Poe with a little help from Sam Simon. And the director of that segment was David Silverman. And of course, the showrunners were Matt Groening, Sam Simon, and James L. Brooks. And as far as the Halloween episodes go, this one is pretty mild. But it's only the first one, so it's not quite as wild and out there as, say, Treehouse of Horror 5. But even with that said, this episode was so good, they made a Treehouse of Horror 2, and 3, and 4, and so on. Not to mention the fact that this is the first episode that features James Earl Jones as a guest star.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
And let's not even talk about skipping this episode. Don't skip Treehouse of Horror episodes. At least not for the first 8 or 9 seasons anyway. So let's just get started with the commentary analysis.
Hello, everyone. You know, Halloween is a very strange holiday. Maybe you should tuck them into bed early tonight instead of writing us angry letters tomorrow. Thanks for your attention.
Hi, I'm Al
Hello,
Jean.
everyone.
Hey, this is Mike Reese.
And this is Matt Groening.
This is a disclaimer at the start of the first Halloween show. At the beginning, we felt that these Halloween segments might be too frightening, especially since most of our audience, or a lot of them were children. So we put this in to warn people, although I'm sure it actually made them more interested in what was going to come.
Also, I believe this whole segment is a parody of the opening of Frankenstein. Frankenstein, the original movie, opened with just this kind of disclaimer, a guy coming out in front of a curtain warning the audience.
Oh, the famous tombstones.
These got harder and harder to write, and so eventually, I don't know when we just abandoned the whole idea.
Flashlight, please.
Another thing that inspired these episodes was classic EC comics, narrated horror tales.
That's all of it. Sign here.
There you are, my man. And $1 for yourself.
$1. I'm glad there's a curse on this place.
Huh?
Get out.
What on earth was that?
Probably just a house settling.
The Halloween shows, by the way, are just about the hardest thing we have to do. They're murderous for the animators, and they're very hard to write, and especially the more of them we do, the more kind of archetypal stories we run through. And it's a drag because it's generally the first or second show we record for the year. So it's just the beginning of a long season, and we're all ready for a vacation by the time we do this one.
Yeah, after as the years have progressed, we've wound up doing it as a holdover, where we write the Halloween show the previous Halloween. That way the animators have more time to direct these things, which are extremely complicated. A lot of new sets, a lot of new characters.
A lot of blood.
I think the house is loosely modeled on the Amityville Horror House.
This all looked so great when it first aired. I couldn't believe the sophistication of it, and now it's a very ambitious kind of washing machine.
Get out.
The voice of the house is Harry Shearer. This, I think, is a scene that was in Poltergeist, where all the objects are flying around.
What's the problem? We get a bunch of priests in
I'm
here.
not going to live in a house of evil just to save a few dollars.
Don't be so stubborn!
One of the fun things, though, about doing these Halloween specials is that we get to break the rules and have the characters, chop each other's heads off, and and I think there is a cathartic thing that the writers get, being able to make the characters do all sorts of horrible things.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We'll have an idea where we'll go, oh, that would be good, but it's too bloody, so we'll do it in the Halloween show. Or sometimes we'll have an idea that's really good, but it just doesn't lend itself well to a full episode.
This is the only Treehouse of Horror that actually uses the treehouse motif, right?
That's correct.
All right.
There's also an unofficial rule that Kang and Kodos, who are in the next segment, have to be in every Halloween.
And you know how many times they've been forgotten into the last... Oh, my God, we got to put them in. That's why they appear so...
Oddly.
Oddly, yes, in some of those shows.
Are you my conscience?
Yes, I am.
That's great.
This did scare some kids, I remember.
This was brutal. I mean, we're building to something that I was totally flabbergasted when I first saw it.
I also remember the censor was concerned, Lisa picking up a butcher knife and using... I mean, that is something a kid could imitate.
They are all against me.
Yeah, that eye shape on Homer, for example, you rarely, if ever, see in the regular episodes because it's so sinister.
Luckily, no babies can spin their heads around.
A baby with a knife. That's cute.
This is good direction by Wes Archer.
Unfortunately, Wes Archer didn't bother to show up for this commentary.
What's going on out here? Homer, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, stop it.
This is a typical Halloween ending where we have scary, horrific stuff, and then it sort of turns into a family issue or Marge, giving some good advice.
I agree with Al Jean about that, but I think I would have explained it a little differently. A very common formula for these Treehouse of Horror segments is that many of them quickly build to something disturbing, and then it gets suddenly deflated completely by something logical and realistic, but it gets inserted in a very illogical and unrealistic way. And I think it's important to mention that this is once again John Swartzwelder laying down the formula that would be used time and time again in years to come.
Mom, Dad, look! It's an ancient Indian burial ground. Man, this place has got everything.
There's a joke down there in the graveyard where there's tombstones. It's an Indian graveyard, so it says crazy horse and not so crazy horse. And the writers were outraged that the animators had stuck in this crappy joke on their own, and how could they do this? How did we let it slide through? I can say it now. That was my joke. They phoned me for it, and I never took the blame for it till this minute.
So Mike Reese apparently let the animators take the fall for that. And he only admits it 11 years later when he's no longer working for the show. What a little weasel.
It's all right.
I know, I didn't see what they got so bent out of shape about. It's the worst joke in the history of The Simpsons.
Well, I think it was just because we had bad experiences with the animators sabotaging that very first episode of the show. So
You mean the DVD extra? Available on Simpson 1 if you haven't bought it yet.
the one where the audio commentary is nothing but us screaming.
Well, that's a lot of them.
You didn't tell me it was built on an Indian burial ground! No, you didn't! Well, that's not my recollection. Yeah, well, all right, goodbye. He says he mentioned it 5 or 6 times.
So I think it's important to mention that this entire section, from the point that Lisa opens the basement door all the way through to the end of Homer's phone call, is entirely cut out of many of the syndicated versions of this segment. Basically, all the scenes that use the term Indian instead of Native American. Which is kind of a shame, because I think that scene with Homer on the phone arguing with the guy who sold him the house is one of the funniest scenes in the whole episode. And I'd guess this scene will eventually be removed from Disney Plus as well. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but sooner or later, anything that could be considered even remotely offensive will be removed by Disney or the Simpsons producers themselves. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, you can see the way that the stairs move is they're a different level going behind the other level.
I've never been so angry. My hands are shaking.
Good acting on the house.
Well, it made me laugh that her hands are shaking, but they're not shaking.
We're all going to have to live together, so you better get used to it.
Can I have a minute to think about this?
Sure.
The Addams Family house? The Munster house?
Choice do I
It looks a little like the Addams Family house, that the where Uncle Fester lived.
Wow.
Bitchin'!
Oh, that's great.
Chose to destroy itself rather than live with us. You can't help but feel a little rejected.
And commercials.
Hungry are the damned.
Hi, I'm Al Jean.
And I'm Jake Hogan.
This is Matt Granning.
Hi, Wally Wolodarski.
Jim Brooks.
This is segment 2 of the first Halloween show, Hungry the Damned, written by Jay and Wally and directed by Rich Moore.
Hey, I remember that I was really excited about that apron because it was based on when The Godfather was really big and everyone had Mafia staff car bumper stickers. So we were really excited to put it on the apron. Like Homer got in at the very end of the craze.
That should just about do it.
This lighter fluid gag is pretty much if anybody asked for a Simpsons clip in the first 4 seasons, this is the one they got. I think it was originally a little long.
Yes, we actually wrote it on the page to be enormously long.
We've done variations on this gag, too, where he sprays it even longer and then it lights nicely.
This shot here is a parody of a shot from Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock, also used in Jaws, where you have a zoom and a tracking shot at the same time.
I mean, this obviously was inspired by EC Comics, which we were all very into. Sam was really into Tales of the Crypt, and so we always talked about doing something like this. I remember the character drawing for Kang and Kodos was one of the few times that Wally and I ever got to actually draw something and say it should look like kind of like this, because the description was very fuzzy. We said it looks like an octopus in a space helmet. Right. It was very hard to figure out with the trail of goo.
Yes, this is their first appearance, and we have an unofficial rule that they have to appear in every Halloween episode.
When you look at the character, you see a clear EC Comics design to it. They're, inexplicably wearing glass helmets, And of course, Twilight Zone is all over this too. We all saw the Twilight Zone.
Please, Mr. Chambers, eat. We wouldn't want you to lose weight.
I told the animators, I said, look, you guys don't have to make it so hard on yourself. They don't have to drool constantly. Just introduce them drooling and then have them stop. And they said, no, we like it. And they've drooled ever since.
It's nice that they're slimy.
Well, I just think for this plot, too, it's just very funny that they're drooling so much considering the ending.
Well, thank you very much, Mr.
To pronounce it correctly, I would have to pull out your tongue.
Oh, remember we met James Earl Jones at the Village Recorder in West LA on a Saturday morning. And we had audio tape of him eating cookies. The world's greatest announcer, he was clearing his throat and eating cookies and going, right. He's like, I remember he was like, oh, these are good.
Earthlings eat. Grow large with food.
They're not suspicious at all. Grow large with food.
Well, some of these things, when you know the ending, you go, well, why did they say that? What was their motivation?
Anyone from a species that has mastered intergalactic travel, raise your hand. All right, then.
This is a George Meyer joke. This is like a standard George Meyer joke construction. Right. Well, actually, just a standard George Meyer argument. Right. Anytime he wants to end an argument. Right. If you didn't like the last so-and-so record, all those people who've recorded a gold record, raise your hand. End of story.
Except we all have. Simpsons Sing the Blues still available.
Remember the first voices they did, though, for the aliens? They didn't want to do the deep, imperious aliens. It was like that. It was like those Muppet things on Saturday Night Live. What were those things?
Scraggles or whatever they were.
Grublers?
Squid.
Ecological, oh grand polluter.
Excellent, Mr. Simpson. Excellent.
It is true, like in retrospect, when you get to the end, this makes no sense at all. It's the world's biggest cheat.
I think the corridor is influenced by the design of the spaceship in Alien.
Remember how long we spent on this book, the book title? I mean, of course, it's all right out of Twilight Zone.
Right.
I mean, everyone recognizes it.
Don't get on that ship. The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
No! 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 No!
It's a harmless cookbook. It's just a little dusty.
I remember this joke is John Vidi's joke, and I've been taking credit for it ever since.
Yeah. I don't remember. God, I remember we spent so much time with the various
variants on the 4 and 40.
Yeah.
Well, I had an additional joke which was rejected, which was that they blew off the dust one more time, and it was how to cook for 40 humans and then eat them. So they would have gone a different direction, in which case their behavior would have made sense.
You aren't the only beings who have emotions, you know.
James Earl Jones, everybody.
Even Darth Vader can cry.
Sarek the Preparer hasn't returned many times to The Simpsons, has he?
No, because he costs money.
Because of your distrustful nature. That can never be.
These are the same guys that in 4 years are killing Bob Dole. Bill Clinton.
Did they ever become like real characters that actually existed in the Simpsons world? I don't even
Only
know.
in clip shows or Halloween shows,
Halloween
never
show.
in a regular episode.
Right. I don't remember that.
So one of them showed up in the Springfield Files in season 8.
Yo!
And while it wasn't a Halloween or a clip show, it was a crossover episode with the X-Files. And crossover episodes aren't exactly regular episodes. In fact, I'd say they land really close to the flexible canon you see in clip shows.
Oh, this makes me very angry.
Lisa, see what we mean when we say you're too smart for your own good?
Way to go, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Hi, my name is David Silverman. I'm the senior director on The Simpsons Show, and I'm here to describe to you the steps that we take to make a show from script to finished picture. Now, we receive a script and a soundtrack from Gracie Films, and let me just go over the steps very quickly. From script and soundtrack, step 1 is storyboard. From storyboard comes layout. From layout, we do what's called an animatic. Once that's approved, we get prepared to ship overseas. Before we do that, we do what's called exposure sheets. Then we ship overseas to Korea. In Korea, they do the finished animation, Xerox, painting, and camera. It comes back here. We call retakes if need be. And then it's sent back to Gracie where they do the sound effects, the music, and mix the voices down. The whole process that I've just described takes anywhere from 5 to 7 months, from the time we get the script to the time you see it on the air. And it all starts with the script and the soundtrack. Scripts look like any other script. This one's called Treehouse of Horrors. I took over the third act, which is called The Raven, based on the Poe's Raven. It was written by Edgar Allan Poe and adapted by Sam Simon, and visually adapted by me, which is what the directors do, visually adapt the written word.
Hi, I'm Al Jean.
This is Mike Grace here.
This is Matt Groening.
And David Silverman over here.
This was the first Halloween show trilogy, and this segment we're about to see is a satire of The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe's classic poem.
And it's, I think we'll discuss over the course of it, there's quite a bit of, there are many cutaways back to the Treehouse during The Raven, and they were not original to the episode, even to the animation, because we did something I don't think we've done again, where we really stuck very literally to the Raven text, and it was only watching it fully animated. Obviously, it's bravura animation, but it seemed not Simpson-y enough, and that's why we kept cutting back to reality. But you'll see, at least, as we do these segments, how much, even at this early stage, we were able to build out of bits and pieces of old animation.
Ah, distinctly I remember. It was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow.
Well, this is coming up right now, is that because it was just all a narration coming up, I just started doing just some weird, almost abstract, surreal type animation. I mean, not wildly, but just within the tone of it, and just doing some weird moves. And then we had this one thing with the brushing of his head.
So I'm going to do a scene which the line is from the poem, and it is, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. So, well, I don't do the voice. In this case, James Earl Jones does the voice, and he sounds like this.
December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow.
The next step after the script is the storyboard. The storyboard consists of individual pictures and scenes. The shot, Homer is talking to the Raven, aka Bart, and here's the master composition, and here are some of the acting poses that Homer does. Each picture corresponds to a part of the script, dialogue, or action. Every time we have a different scene, different setup of camera, basically. And Bart, as the Raven, says, "Nevermore." Homer screams, "Ah!" Turns to Bart, and then we cut. This is the next scene. So that was scene 267. This is scene 268. And that's what the storyboard helps dictate. The compositions, the acting, and the cutting. In conjunction with the storyboard, along with the storyboard, I should say, we do character design and background design. Here we have Homer in his British-style smoking jacket. Here we have Lisa and Maggie as Seraphins. And the only real character design we had to do was Bart as a raven bird. Other elements have been designed, other props. Every new element that doesn't exist in our library already has to be designed. The next step is the animatic. What we do is we shoot these layout drawings with the soundtrack so we can see what we've done, see if it looks any good.
It was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow.
Okay, now we're at the animatic stage. At this point, as opposed to the matter of minutes we've gone through to describe it, we've gone through about 10 to 12 weeks of production time here in the United States. The next step is to ship it overseas to Korea. In Korea, they take our layout drawings and they flesh them out with animation drawings. And to achieve this, the directors have to do one more step, and that's the exposure sheets. Each line on the sheet is one frame. A second is 24 frames. So what we do as directors is we write notes in the action column to the animators. For example, here's a little drawing of Homer's head being caressed by the hands. I've labeled the hands 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've indicated that I want them to caress over his head at different rates, different points. Here I'm saying move Homer's head from position 1 to position H2 in about 8 frames. We get very specific in our exposure sheet writings. So we ship the whole kit and caboodle over to Korea. And in Korea it takes anywhere from really 7 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, till you get the final product. As you can see, this is a cell from the scene we just showed you. The images are Xeroxed on one side. You reverse the image and paint the back. They're transparent, so we can replace just the head part in this example and leave the body on one held cell. All the animation is done in this manner. The whole process that I've described now takes around 20 weeks. The final process is to add the sound effects and the music, which gives you a final result which looks like this.
And this, I used, of course, Mona Lisa as a reference. And then this is a gag we actually would do in the Tracy Ullman show every now and then, another picture for Marge's hair.
The poem obviously is read by James Earl Jones, and in this segment, in this trilogy, he's also the voice of Sarek the Preparer in the Alien segment, and the voice of the Mover in the Bad Dream House.
I remember watching this in animatic, and I was so frightened that this was going to be the worst, most pretentious thing that we'd ever done. I was like, oh no, where are the gags? Oh my God, this is, it turned out great. And David, I think a lot of the credit goes to, obviously Edgar Allan Poe. And a lot of it goes to you, because the designs on this and the gags and the coloring and everything on this is just so beautiful.
It was great fun. Actually, it was boarded. I boarded it, and Jeff Lynch, who's really a great director, he did a lot of great episodes when he became a director. It really helped, and I ended up, I think, just when I was designing shots, ended up designing the background almost by accident.
Well, this was given the seal of approval by my snotty New York intellectual friends. They really, really loved this.
If we can please one snotty New York intellectual, we've done our job.
I remember in the early days, anyone who would come up to me and say, I love The Simpsons, I love that Raven thing you did, it's like, you're showing off. All right, you're smart. You're the Poe.
Well, plus Bullwinkle used to do it, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. A lot of people love this. I'm always amazed. Go to schools and they show it to people. They say, oh, we love this. But I had a lot of fun doing a lot of quick cutting on certain parts, like when the Raven first pops in, and doing a lot of really far out, stretched out wide-angle lens angles.
Eat my shorts. Bart, stop it. He says nevermore, and that's all he'll ever say. Okay.
That cutback to Lisa where he says nevermore, and that's all he'll ever say, that was added in post. You can tell Lisa's acting is not really what would match that reading.
In fact, I think every one of these, there's a lot of loop lines I had forgotten about, too, that come in over this action that's was also added in post. I think it's a case of overcompensation. I think there's too much of it, and we didn't really need it, and the piece stands very well, obviously, on its own.
Swung by Seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor.
How does Maggie fall down without hitting the floor?
And take thy farm from off my door,
quoth the Raven.
Nevermore.
Well, here I really wanted to stretch that sort of distance between the Raven and Homer. And I got to say that Dan's acting on this is really brilliant, because he's really doing a great bravado performance and keeping it in this crazy Homer voice of his. And it was just when I heard his reading, I was just so impressed. And every time you get a reading like this, it just makes it a lot easier to do the animation. And here it was just sort of like, I just try crazy angles, and this was just a really insane flying point of view shot. This is the only really gag that we had here. The old Warner Brothers gag. But I always like this gag dropping the books. Really, really terrific music that Alf did.
Yeah. This was Alf's first show, I believe, too.
I think so.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's a huge challenge. We always say a Halloween episode, which are especially music heavy, have more music cues than a feature film.
I would actually love, we've done those Alf has done those two albums of songs, mostly songs from The Simpsons. I'd love him to do one that's just mostly just like this one, just the orchestral music, because it's so great on this episode, all 3 acts.
Yeah, generally when we submit a show for the Music Emmy, it's the Halloween show.
I'll just say, we kind of had to do these not really on the fly, but Rich and Wes and myself, we all had 5 episodes to do that season. And this one was also like, oh, can you do 1 act of this Halloween episode? And I don't know how we got it done, but we're looking at it now.
I'm also impressed how we thought this was going to be really scary. Marge does a disclaimer at the Halloween show at the beginning, and it's gotten so much bloodier over the years.
Regular episodes are scarier than this one now.
Here, Homer's scared by a bird.
Itchy and Scratchy episodes are scarier than this now.
Yeah, the scary Halloween names came in the next year in season 3.
Was that your idea?
Yeah, well, it was based on what EC Comics used to do, obviously, where the editors would give themselves scary names. Except now there's so many producers and so many scary names, the blood lettering fills the screen. You can't see the show.
You can't read any of the names.
I try to make my little nickname shorter than my name. So rather than those long,
Right.
drawn-out ones.
This is the first time we did a different title music, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, this is supposed to be a theremin, but a theremin can't hit all those notes, so...
So it doesn't get more foundational than the original Treehouse of Horror, and Season 2 is full of episodes that are the first of their kind. I mean, not only is Season 2 the first one that features Phil Hartman, but John Swartzwelder wrote some incredible episodes in the second season, as well as contributing the first segment to this episode. There really isn't anything bad I can say about Treehouse of Horror. It just doesn't get more classic in my opinion. So with that, I'm moving on to the next one. 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish. I'll see you then.